Welcome to the Hunted Preview season and to Arsenal Pass. We're here today with our Hunted Preview as the hunt get geared up to seek vengeance. We here at Arsenal Pass Armory are ready to ensure all those in the party are equipped and fitted out for the battles to come.
That's right, Hayden, and we spare no expense here to bring to our craft never before seen upgrades and enhancements to our wares. Some might even say they are legendary.
I've heard those words used before. But Pankaj, I have a question for you, a theory question.
Ask away, Hayden, ask away.
Does anything beat a nice, sturdy pair of footwear?
Thick pair of boots? Nope, not that I can think of.
No. Do you think shoes or boots are best built for longevity or for nimbleness and speed?
Almost certainly when designed for impact and speed.
Well, in that case, it looks like we have just the thing for our players of this fine game. There we have it, Quickdodge Flexors, the Arsenal Pass preview card for the Hunted season. And what a card it is. Pankaj, I got to start by asking you, when I first showed you this card, what did you think? And now that you've had some time to sit with it, what are your thoughts?
Well, when you first showed me this card, I had to read it like 3 times before I understood every single implication about this card. Just the fact that it can sit there until you need to use it. Like, you aren't committing to block with it in the blocking step. You can literally just leave it there, and then in the defense reaction step, go ahead and activate it whenever they want, which means your opponent, to some extent, needs to always be thinking about this card. I think about it a little bit like a reverse arousing wave, right? Like in new, when you're blocking the new, you always need to think, oh, they might randomly just pump 1 on anything. Well, now you're sitting against this card and your deck that likes reactions, you need to think, oh, they might just go ahead and block 2 at any time in the reaction step.
Yeah. How cool. I mean, my first reaction was we get to show people something they've never seen before. As far as we know, when we've recorded this video, we've never seen a defense reaction on a piece of equipment before. So first of all, shout out to LSS for allowing us to show off Quickdodge Flexors and bestowing us this amazing preview card and getting to show off a brand new, a mechanic attached to a card we've never seen before. So I just think it's super cool. I guess what I want to quickly touch base on in this preview video is how good is this card? How powerful is it? And where are we going to see it? But before we talk about that, just a couple of, things to note. It is a defense reaction. It does act like any other defense reaction. You pay your 1 resource and you add it as an active card to the defending chain link in the reaction window. You can use this multiple times though, Pankaj. So if the chain link gets broken, because this doesn't get destroyed until end of turn, you can use this multiple times in a turn if your opponent chooses to break the chain link, which I think we'll discuss as a very cool kind of play to where you may or may not use this card. But you do have to pay the resource again to be able to use it. I think those are the main notes before we kind of jump into more about the theory of this card, let's say.
Yeah, I definitely jumped ahead a little bit when I went ahead and made the analogy to Arousing Wave. I think we need to start from just the type line, Hayden. Legendary slot in the boots. This is not something we've had so far. And obviously the defense reaction part on the equipment as well, which is, it's new and fresh.
Yeah, generic equipment, legs, legendary. Like, it's just, I think that's the thing that got me when that's actually the first thing I looked at when I saw this card. I was like, whoa, we've got a generic legs legendary. And then I went up and saw, what? Defense reaction. Yeah, I mean, I honestly think, and we're probably seeing this in the live chat right now, different reactions to this card. I reckon there's a polarizing reaction to this card because I think this card can seem a little bit polarizing. Is this card probably unplayable, or is this card very, very, very good? And I think there's going to be people on both sides of the fence. And the reason I say that is because when we broke this down, right, when we were talking about this the first time, this is effectively for some people might look at this as an Ironhide boots, right? Like, that's going to be a comparison people make immediately. It will cost 1 to defend for 2. That's an Ironhide boots, right, Pankaj?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did also the other first thing that came to my mind when you showed me this card was we were sort of thick in sort of CYB discussions at the time. So my mind did go straight to, oh, you pitch 1 block with this and you pay 2 for your CYB as well. And I was like, oh no, did CYB just get a buff? But you're right. Once you make the comparison to Ironhide Boots, you're kind of like, when is this actually outperforming Ironhide Boots? Because no one plays that card, right? So the parts where you'd want this and where it's actually an upgrade of Ironhide Boots would be if you really need a defense reaction clause of it, so think against Warrior Assassin, or if you're against a deck where, as you pointed out earlier, where they break the chain, and you can get this effect more than once in the turn. So think maybe one of the mechanologists that like to break the chain to go ahead and activate Tactile Foundry Heart in the middle of their attacks.
Yeah. One question I guess I have about, so one, I guess, interesting thing is this card does have a defensive value as stat, right? It has a 0 base defense value. So you could throw this on defense reaction to block with 0, but just note that it would get destroyed. So it's not quite as tricky as maybe it may be able to seem of like you could block with, you could defend with this normally for 0, which you can, but you are going to lose it at the end of the defense, the end of turn. So it's not quite, the first time I read this, I was like, oh, you can just block with this for 0, on double block things or to play around triggers, things like that. But it doesn't actually work that way, so you lose it.
Or the T-bone or something. No,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you do lose it.
Also, actually, I mean, people have been talking about Jarl a little bit, and that 0 block could totally just be a bit of a liability. Jarl kind of just like breaks it.
Yeah.
0 block.
Yeah, exactly. I think what is really cool, so you say, and I kind of pointed out as well, Ironhide Boots. That's the direct comparison I think people are going to make immediately. It's a very easy one. Defense reactions are powerful. And with Ironhide Boots, right, you have to put it on the chain face up to use it. And you can use it at any time, right? I think with Quickdodge Flexors, you don't really lose any of the flexibility of being able to use it at any time when you have that resource available. But what you do gain is the ability to have a really powerful card on the board that can stop on-hit effects. And I think that is what makes this card so strong, is it's not the flexibility of the resource to get 2 defense. That's Ironhide Boots is already out there doing that, right? This is something that your opponent has to always consider when they're thinking, I'm going to use an attack reaction here. I'm going to set up this attack reaction here, because there is an on-board defense reaction. No longer are they thinking, well, if they have the Sink Below an Arsenal or et cetera, et cetera. They are also saying, well, they literally have it face up on the board. How is my opponent likely to play? And with any piece of equipment, the longer that this piece of equipment sticks around the board, the harder it is to play around, the more your opponent has to consider and think about it. And I think it's no different with Quickdodge Flexors. I think this card is actually a lot more powerful than it may seem to many on face value, I think.
It very much is the reverse rousing wave, as we were talking about earlier, just on the defensive side. So with that, I think it might be useful to go ahead and talk about where this would have a home and like which classes particularly. And the first one that comes to my mind, Hayden, is Guardian, right? For a long time, they've been itching for just a better card in the boot slot. Everyone complains about Civic Steps. Back in the day, like I think at some point Oldhams were running like Iron Rod, Iron Hide in that slot when they weren't running Nullrune boots. So now the Guardians finally have something in the boot slot that they might be happy to run compared to something like Civic Steps.
Yeah, I think that's the natural include. It's Guardian's been screaming for, like you say, a piece of legendary footwear for a very long time, and it might not be for every Guardian, right? I think where this is going to fit best is, the immediate thing that came to my head is this pairs so well with a Staunch Response, for instance, to really block out in the defense reaction. But I think there will be other natural homes. CYB is not gone entirely, and honestly, as we've spoken about, CYB might be back in its full form once something like Enigma hits Living Legend. So there's other cards that you can utilize that 2 resources with. So I think Guardian is probably the best home for that. I think the other one that comes to mind is other decks that want to play on the opponent's turn. So I don't know, maybe there's Wizards in the future that want to use these boots. The problem is Stormstriders is there, so probably not. But even I think Illusionists, for instance, Illusionists over a long time have wanted to use resources during the opponent's turn. I think Enigma could find a home for this. But the other one is, where does this get used against? That's my question. And I think this could just be purely sideboard options for against Warrior and Assassin. That's an answer to 2 classes that are getting massive amounts of cards and heroes coming into their card pool with this set.
Sideboard option is also where my mind goes looking at this card, because of what you brought up just now, right? What is the alternative available to your class? If you're talking about something like Guardian, sure, there isn't really much else. Maybe you play this all the time. But Wizards almost always like playing Stormstriders. But you talk about Enigma, you are potentially giving up Phantasmal Footsteps if you want to run this card for the defense reaction part of it. And if you're running a CYB Enigma, you might just want Phantasmal Footsteps unless you're specifically against a tricky assassin or a tricky warrior. And warriors themselves come to mind. It's like Valen Dynamos are probably not giving that up. But if you're, say, if your other boots of choice was Refraction Bolters, for example, maybe you could find matchups where this actually gives you more value than the Bolters.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you on sideboard slot, and also very contingent to what other boots does your class have access to.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, worst comes to worst, this is a good use of a tunic counter, I think. So, I think that a lot of places will be able to find a home for it. I guess to wrap it all up, my question to you is, how good do you think this card is, and what impact do you think we'll see from it? Do you think it's going to have a reasonable impact on the format?
So are we gonna bring back out the Arsenal pass scale that we brought up when we were speaking about the previews, right? We brought it as a 0 to 10, and if I recall correctly, we put I forgot, we had some cards that were like in the high, like above 10s. I think the weird thing about this card is that it's so contingent on what's popular, right? With a new assassin coming out, you have to imagine some assassins will be popular, and this card seems like it would be pretty good against assassin. I also wonder whether it could be good against Rune Blades. Like Viscerai these days actually breaks the chain every now and then, like Deadwood Dirge, and with them sending Arcane at you, you are already able to have an outlet or other resources on your opponent's turn. So you can use it multiple times and then also have whatever leftover floating to pay for AB. Vincent also comes to mind. Vincent definitely breaks the chain a bunch. So if these heroes are good, I could see its impact being there, but again, sideboard card, not every class is gonna have a worse boot slot to like put this in. So I'm gonna put this at maybe like a 4 in terms of impact.
Okay. I'm going out on a limb. I'm putting the impact. Arsenal Pass impact scale is out. I'm putting this at a 7. I think that you're going to find home for this, and a very powerful home where this gets to be used multiple times in a turn. And I think because you get to stick this around and choose when to use it, you're going to be able to find very strong cases where you can foresee that your opponent's going to break the chain or force them to play a different way, which also gains you value when they don't break the chain to try and play around it. I think at minimum it's going to be an impactful sideboard card. I think there's going to be multiple decks that find a home for this and get boots upgrades. So I think all in all, I think it's going to be... I think it is a powerful... there's no question it's a powerful card. I think its current impact is going to be measured. I think it'll be interesting to your point to see, in this current meta, for instance, I think its impact would be low, but I have this feeling that its impact is going to be higher. So I'm gonna give it a 7 on the impact scale, and I'm gonna give this like if we had a power scale, I'd give this like an 8.5. I think this card is very powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful for sure. Impact scale is a little bit different from power, and I'm glad you brought up the distinction. This card will single-handedly revive Slapdash. Or Total Dash.
Oh, I don't know if I'm happy without that, to be honest. Well, thank you for tuning into the Arsenal Pass preview card for the Hunted season. Best of luck to all of you out there heading to your quests, the world premiere, to pre-releases, to the release events that are happening in the coming weeks. And until next time, we'll see you later.
And real quick, thank you once again to LSS for giving us this amazing preview card and letting us be a part of it.